Welcome to another episode of Euphoric, the podcast. I'm sitting across from Michael O'Brien, who is really pioneering a space in mindfulness and presence and has just a crazy story that elucidates why he cares so much about being awake to the profundity of your life. And before we get into that, I wanted to share just a quick backstory. Megan Swan, one of my dear peers and clients as well throughout the years, actually connected us because we recently both lost our loves of our lives, essentially, and our families, our pets and stuff. And so Michael and I share that. So we'll probably get into that as well. But before we get into all the things, Michael, I would love to, introduce you and your backstory a little bit. And you went through just a harrowing experience back in 2001, I believe. Can you kind of walk us back a little bit to like what your life used to look like, what happened, and then how that completely changed you as a human?
Well, yeah, no doubt. It definitely was a monumental shift. And first of all, Carolina, thanks for having me on. And I'm so honored to be part of your community and your universe and all that good stuff like that. So yeah, 2001. So as we sit here today, as we record our conversation, I'm only a few days away from celebrating the 25th anniversary of that day. So back in 2001, this is a time period where we didn't have social media, we didn't have the internet as we knew it, and but I was hustling and grinding like the best of them. I was chasing my happiness as many people today chase their happiness. It's the arrival fallacy that will once we get there, once we get to the next spot, then we'll be fill in the blank, happy, successful, however you wish to fill in the blank. And I was right there. And I was probably numbing my reality a bit. I was the sort of a typical 33-year-old professional. I'd throw back a couple glasses of wine each night. I thought that's what you did. I was probably a little too addicted to my work, thinking that I had never really truly made it. It just wasn't enough. That whole story, that story was in my head. I was also a lifelong athlete, really into cycling from the very first days I came off of training wheels when I was a young kid. And I brought my bicycle out to a company offsite meeting in New Mexico. We were north of Albuquerque and south of Santa Fe, and I got hit head on by a Ford Explorer going 40 miles an hour. He crossed over into my lane and like ran me down. Not intentionally, just he was a distracted driver. He lost control. And I was at that one moment at the same time his Ford Explorer was at the same moment. And to fast forward a little bit through the story, my trauma team has no clue how I survived.
Mm.
There I was, father of a 3.5-year-old daughter and a 7-month-old daughter. I really had this mindset that like bad things happen to other people. Like I'm like, I'll keep you in my thoughts and prayers, and just I didn't think anything was gonna happen to me. And then here we are, really as a family. Obviously, I'm going through it, but we're also going through it as a family. Something horrific was in front of us. And we had to decide like how we're going to show up for this very moment. Again, the doctors, one surprise I even survived. That's what they told my wife when she finally made it out to Albuquerque, because eventually they flew me out on a medevac, a helicopter ride. And my first surgery took about 13 hours. I needed 36 units of blood, um, blood transfusions, plasma, you name it. I was in the ICU for a few days. When I came out of the ICU, I started to learn about the accident. The driver had a revoked license. So you can go down that rabbit hole like, he shouldn't have been driving that day. This is so unfair. Like, why did this happen to me? All that. And the doctors painted a pretty grim picture of my future. They said, listen, you're probably never going to ride your bike again. You're probably going to walk with some trouble. You'll have many more surgeries. So my whole sense of identity, like who am I going to become? Like I knew who I was, and even though I wasn't doing that perfectly, I I knew it. It was comforting, and they really sort of shook me upside down and was like, listen, you're in for a long haul. And I wondered who I was going to become as a dad, as a husband, as a professional, all of it. And so that was the beginning of the recovery process. And it was only through some different moments through the whole recovery where I started to shift my perspective, and I was able to move from like, why is this happening to me, to why is this happening for me? One of my mentors actually brought that up early on in my recovery, and it was like way too soon for that question. It was like, I get that question, but too soon, too soon. I'm not ready. I'm still grieving my past life. But I sat with that and I was like, okay, why is this happening? Why could this be happening for me? I also came to the conclusion that like in life, we we have all these different moments in our day, and some moments bring us great joy and some bring us great grief and all the different emotions in between. And so I thought about that because someone shared with me like, hey, listen, Michael, everything in your life is neutral until you place a label on it. And I was good with the labels, like most of us are, like good, bad, right, wrong, ton of labels. So I was like, okay, well, if that's true, but at first I thought it was like a Jedi Star Wars mindset thing. Like, what are you, I go, what are you doing to me? Like, I'm still like broken. I'm a bit of a mess. And he's like, everything's neutral until you label it. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. So, but I sat with it. And then I was like, okay, well, if I can like go through a whole bunch of different moments during the course of the day, some happy, some tough, then I can't get to the end of the day and label the full day as a bad day. It's a complex day. It's a messy day. Whatever label you want to use. And I decided that if I have people in my life who I still love and they love me back, then I can't call a full day ever again a bad one.
Mhm.
So I made the decision, a line drawn in the sand, to call the date of my accident, July 11th, 2001, my last bad day. Because as long as I have love in my life, then I can use that love to hopefully create a better tomorrow if I'm so fortunate to see tomorrow.
Mhm.
So that's how it sort of all started. And that was like the big monumental shift. And really on my outlook of on life and how I approach my career and just how we're making sense of this thing called life that we're all still trying to figure out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, that is such a incredible story and thank God that you took that harrowing experience and did find the magic, and it's not just magic for you and your comprehension of life, but it's something you're sharing out in the world, which I can't wait to get into a little bit more next. But I love that thing that your mentor said, or that was continually repeated to you, that everything is neutral except for the label we put on it. And it's interesting because I've been working in the coaching space. I certify coaches for a long time, so this is like things we teach all the time. It's like all the meaning that we assign, and back to like Viktor Frankl's work of like everything is the meaning at the end of the day, nothing is good or bad. And it's like that is what brings us pain if we're assigning bad meaning. And it's one thing to say that, and it's another to really live into it, and really see that like a lot of the torment we bring ourselves comes from here and not actually what's happening externally to us. And I just, reflect too as I'm going through grief. It's like I look back at moments, and I knew this actually even just a few months ago, where like, little life stressors were really getting to you. Like I think back in March, it was like tenants were moving out of our, apartment that we rented, our house that we rent out. And it was like, oh God, we got to find new tenant. You know what I mean? It was so stressful. And it's like you stop and you're like, everyone I love is alive, and a few months later now,
Yes.
like the person that the animal that to me is like a soul child, isn't here anymore, and it's like what was really that stressful about that situation when you knew you had love and you have these things, and there's so many things that we have grateful for. Do we have our health? Do we have partners? Do we have healthy children? Are our parents still around? You know what I mean? And it's like it is really hard to sometimes sit with that stuff. But like at the end of the day, nothing really matters that is so petty or so trying. when we have that kind of more profound outlook at life. So I'm curious, not only did you start to have this spiritual awakening, I would really say, about like what matters most in life, how did you start to share that with others? How did that spawn like a shift in your career and what you were kind of sharing out with the world?
Well, it was really private at the start. Like I was really reluctant to share it because I was like, in that corporate world, again, going back to the early 2000s, we didn't really have some of the awareness that we have. A lot of the self-help and development work that is current day, some of it gets a bad rap, but it does give us a chance to better understand ourselves. So hopefully we can be a better human tomorrow than we are today. But it can be in a corporate back then in the early 2000s, from a corporate perspective, a little like out there. Like who? It's the classic woo-woo label, right? That people, and the woo-woo label is just more about, well, I don't get it, so I'm going to judge it. And because I I personally believe people use it because I think I know like what's behind that label I'm using is there's actually some goodness there. There's some truth that I could really tap into, but I'm scared to go there. So I'm just going to put this label on it so I can keep some distance away from like what's behind the label I'm using. But I was there. I started a whole mindfulness practice when I was in the hospital because everything felt so overwhelming. I was in the hospital for about 4 months.
Mm.
And I had everybody and their brother telling me what I should do. Okay, do this, do that. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? You should eat this and not that. You should do this exercise, or how about that one? And I was like, oh my gosh, like there is so much. I'm just trying to still figure it out. So I knew as a lifelong athlete, when things got really chaotic in a game, the coach would call a timeout and would give us a chance to catch our breath, right? And so then he would draw up a play, and so the next time we go back on the court or the field or the pitch, we would know what to do. And so I knew my breath was going to be important. So I started doing this simple box breathing pattern. I later called it my pause, breathe, reflect moment. But even that, like the whole like, hey, I'm connecting with my breath when I left the hospital and eventually get back into my corporate life, which I went back to for 13 years before starting my work here that I do today. I kept it really quiet because I didn't want to be judged. So some of the stuff that I was working on and making progress on was great, but there was a lot of stuff that I was well, still not mastering, if you will, or even coming close to mastering, like this fear of other people's opinions. Like, if I bring this out in the public in a corporate setting, will people judge me? And the voice in my head was like, why are you even asking yourself this question, Michael? Of course they're going to judge you. It's different. You have every right to be scared and defensive and nervous about sharing this because once you actually speak loudly about this, they're going to judge the heck out of you and your status will be diminished because I was an executive with close to 1,000 people on my team and also responsible for driving top line revenue.
Mm.
So top line revenue people back then do not go woo woo. They go, they charge hard, like more. What have you done for me lately? All that stuff. So my voice in my head was like, you have every right to be scared out of your mind that they're going to judge you because certainly they will judge you. It was only once I got to the end of my corporate life where I decided to start sharing what I had been doing because I was working on all this stuff behind the scenes, pressure testing it in private in a corporate space. So everything I talk about now was all pressure tested for 13 years. So when I finally came out of my corporate life into more of an entrepreneurial life as a speaker and as a coach, then I tiptoed into it. I was like, well, this is something I'm doing, and this is something I'm doing, and it might work for you or it might not work for you because something like mindfulness doesn't work for everyone, but it could work for definitely more people than currently practice it. Then when the pandemic hit, I was like, especially around gratitude and mindfulness and some of these more contemplative practices, I was like, I don't know who has given us a message. Like I have this acronym called MUG, like that you're a morning barista, Mother Earth, Universe, God, right? You can pick whoever fills up your mug. So whoever it is for you, totally cool. So whoever's filling up our mug is giving us a message with this pandemic. It was the ultimate pause, catch your breath, people, and reflect on how you want to show up. And I thought it was a moment to share more openly what I learned through my recovery around grace. I came up with an acronym around grace and mindfulness and really sort of lean more openly into it. So it took me a while. So I didn't go from accident surviving it to now I'm a speaker on the speaker circuit. It was small steps consistently over time.
Yeah. I'd love to go into more of the heart of the work as well, and that, what you've been able to share, because, I think at this day and age, right, like whether it's mindfulness or meditation, it's like, okay, we've all heard that. Yeah, 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 that's going to make me happier. I need to sit aside 5 to 10 or 20 minutes to do so, or something like that. And I think we miss the bigger point. It's like, it's not just this little exercise that you do. It's like, how do you bring what you learn in the contemplative practices like back into your waking world? And it's like, how are we really alive and awake and present to our lives on a deeper sense? And it has like more to do with like, are we checking out versus how much are we really truly present to this day? And my dog's name was Huxley, and I named him after Aldous Huxley. And one of my favorite works by Aldous Huxley was called The Island. And it was like, Huxley read a lot of Eastern philosophy. He was one of the first to like experiment with like psychedelics and stuff like that. But The Island was really, this idea of like just pay attention, like here and now, here and now. This is your life, And I love that kind of beautiful concept. And so like how do you change people's minds, or how do you make sense of this, of like mindfulness not just being this like 5 minute thing that you do over here in the corner and then you go back
Yeah.
into the rat race of life, and all the thoughts are swarming. How do you like really bring it into your life? Because I will say too that when Huxley passed, I haven't been, drinking alcohol for 8 years, and that's one of the biggest moves I've made to be so much more present with my life. But I like diagnosed my life even more. I'm like, are there any other pockets and corners where I'm checking out, where I'm on my phone too much, where I'm doing this? And
Mm,
I eliminated like games, I eliminated apps, I like stopped watching any mindless TV, and I'm only watching like National Geographic now because that like uplifts me and stuff like that. And so like even in the moment of a really hard time, I decided I cannot by any means have any form of distraction right now. I need to be present with these raw feelings. And I just went into the deep of it and stuff like that. So I recognize how important it is. And to me, it's like it's more than just the 5 minute, sitting on your cushion,
yes.
right? So how do you make sense of all that? And how do you share about this, so it really incorporates into your life instead of being this little thing you do on the side?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you've heard the whole saying, like when it comes to yoga, like take your practice off the mat. And so for mindfulness, it's really taking your practice off the cushion and weaving it into our lives, because I think in current day, so many people think of, well, sitting on the cushion and okay, your morning routine. I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes and I have a nice streak going on my app and like, look how amazing I'm doing. And then by 2 p.m. that afternoon, like all the shit's on fire, right? So it's like, so we have to find a way to like use the practice and then taking what we've learned on the cushion or say on the mat if it happens to be yoga and weave it into our current day. So for example, when we go to the gym and we might like lift weights, right? Lift heavy stuff. And some people want to do that because they want to get toned. They want a certain physique. That's all the shell of who we are. But that strength that we build by going to the gym allows us to operate life. So I was just flying back from Canada last night. And so classic example, real life example of people trying to put a heavy bag up into the overhead compartment on a plane, right? And so a lot of people have bags that weigh 30, 40 pounds, right? So we lift weights, so that whole process is easier. So we can do that when we're 80 or 85 because hopefully we live that long. So a lot of what we do in terms of our overall health and wellness is really about playing the long game. Like, how will this benefit us downstream? But it's also then taking moments. And I'm a big believer when it comes to mindfulness of doing shorter practices, microdose practices, if you will, frequently throughout the day. So a lot of people will come to me, at least the people I tend to hang with, who are busy executives, are like, yeah, yeah, the whole mindfulness thing, Michael, I get it. Like, rationally, I understand it, but I don't have 10 minutes in the morning to do a meditation. And I'm like, cool. I bet you don't. Most people say they don't, but I bet you have 5 times throughout the day where you can take 2 minutes and take 2 minutes at certain intervals throughout the day just to hit pause, maybe put down the phone, some deep breaths. Maybe it's a just 2 minutes of mindful movement, and then just create some space. I love the fact that you mentioned Viktor Frankl, like the whole classic quote that's often attributed to him on the internet: between stimulus and our response, there's a space, right? In that space lies our ability to grow. It's our freedom, right? Paraphrasing here a bit. So when we take these like 2-minute breaks, then we have some space. So when life is getting a little chaotic, we slow it down, again, put down the phone, and then we have a moment of reflection to say, okay, well, how do I want to show up next? What do I want to say next? It's sort of living intentionally and living in accordance, or at least in alignment to our values. And I think if we can show up in alignment to our values, our first principles, then it makes it makes for a meaningful life because we're really choosing what kind of ripple effect we want to create. So I'm a big believer in shorter practices throughout the day. I'm also a fan for those people that want to go on a 7-day silent retreat. Like, good on you. I've been to many, but if you don't take the learning from those silent retreats and try to incorporate at least an aspect of two of your learning, then we're missing, we're missing some of the potential of a practice.
Mm. I really like that. I think what I'm hearing from you is like, one, it's like the pause from our reactivity. And a lot of times that reactivity can be triggered by like subconscious programs, past ways of dealing with things, past hurts. And it's just like, if we're so distracted, and gosh, like we could probably do a whole other podcast episode about like how distracted we are in 2026 as a society, and you and I were just connecting about my second book, and we're talking about like, you know, when we think of our ancestors, they survived so much harder hardships and had, so much little rights and modern, marvels and stuff like that. But at the same time, we are so blessed in that we are also so checked out, so
Yes.
checked out. It is just like 30 tabs open on everyone's computer and bings and bops, you know what I mean? And keeping up with this.
Yes.
And it's so much overstimulus as well. And so it's like we're constantly in that state. And then something happens and triggers us, and we immediately default to this like reactive that's maybe a past, version of us or a childhood program or so, just rage expressed or something like that. And it's interesting to see that like there is that wiser version of us that lives inside of us that is aligned to our values and who we want to become. But that person, one, needs the presence to come out,
Mm.
that space that you spoke about, and also like really having that structure to be able to allow for that to happen. And for me personally, some of these micro moments that you're talking about, like it's not like an indoor cushion. It's like, let me go out and look at the moon, let me go
Yeah.
see if there's like a hawk flying around, and really take a moment to appreciate that. It really can be incorporated into your life in really special ways without it feeling like you have to stop what you're doing, go sit and do, you know what I mean? Like that kind of the
Yeah,
trouble of it, if that makes sense.
totally. And like last night, there was a great strawberry moon. It wasn't full anymore, but it was still just so beautiful. And so you can have a mindful moment by just like going outside, staring up into the moon, staring up into all the stars. You don't have to take a photo of it because let's be honest, every time we try to take a photo of the moon with our iPhones or whatever, it never comes out well. So like leave the phone inside and just like soak it in and just that can be 2 minutes where you just realize that you are but a little bit of a speck on this big blue marble traveling through space in this big universe, this big galaxy. And maybe that gives you a reframing of whatever happens to be on your mind that's causing you anxiety or worry or nervousness or fear or what have you. So we can find these little moments. We can even find them at stoplights. So instead of like grabbing our phones every time the light turns red to check the next message, we can just let our phones be. And and we and this is hard though. The way our phones and some of our digital lives are engineered, it's almost like a magician trick. Like magicians play on sleight of hand. Like, don't look here, look over there. And while you're looking over there, I'm going to do something over here, right? And so it's going to fool you. And we're looking exactly where the magicians want us to look. They have our attention, and things are just getting edgier and edgier in order to like keep our attention or move our attention from one thing to another. But if we can find a way, and I do believe we can do hard things, much like you mentioned, our ancestors went through so much. They were doing it without central air in big wool dresses and three-piece suits during the summer blazes of July and August. Like, we can do this. I firmly believe in us as humans and as people. We can do hard things, but this is going to be hard to recapture our presence, to recapture our attention. And it can feel like an overwhelming problem. Like, oh my God, it's so big. How are we going to do it? How are we going to like live in this social media AI world? We're all doomed. So instead of like doing anything about it, we'll just go along for the ride. But hopefully enough people will say, you know what, I don't want to go down that path. I want to regain my presence. I want to live in my moments because we only have moments to live, right? And really try to give those moments our full attention and really like lean into them when, yeah, we feel joy in those moments, but even when we feel incredible sadness, to feel that, because to feel all a range of different emotions, I feel is what it means to truly live.
Mhm.
And again, as I mentioned, it's going to be hard because we have fallen into this groove of how we're doing our lives with our phones and devices and whatnot. So to get out of that, to find a different groove that's more present, that's more aware, that's more connected, will take effort. But I do believe we have it in us to put in that effort.
Mhm. I think what you just said is so much behind my philosophy on like the merits of living alcohol-free lifestyle or questioning, alcohol in the first place, because it's like that is the ultimate way that, it's not always from a bad emotion. I certainly didn't always just drink from stress or, from like, oh, I need to let loose. It was also like, oh, I can't wait for this exciting thing on Saturday or
Yeah,
stuff like that. And
yeah,
it was almost not recognizing, well, why wasn't my life exciting enough that I was so looking forward to happy hour at the end of the day? So to me, it was such a exercise in presence and mindfulness to really, live life feeling all the breaths of my emotions. And it turned out to be way more joyful than this other existence where the highs were coming from a beverage at the end of the day? And I see now too, it's actually really hard to say that, like, I'm going through a big grief period, and it's hard to say that this is a bad time because actually, I've never felt more connected with myself. And I know everyone, handles grief differently, but I've been more awake, more aware, more raw, more vulnerable, less okay and open for any form of distraction or checking out. I have been so present with myself and nature and mug as well, right? Mother
yeah.
Earth, universe, God, it has been incredible. And I think grief works like that. Like when you really allow the full expression of that emotion, there's the bad ones, there's the shame, there's regret, there's a deep ache of sadness, but there's also the love and the memory and the joy and the learning of what you go through in that. And that kind of brought us together. We both lost, really important members of our family recently. And I'm just curious, what do you think people misunderstand a lot about pet loss?
Well, I think a lot of folks, sometimes we say they're part of our family, or for some people they're like children, right? So for people that don't have children, they're like children. And there's this connection to our animals, and we've had cats and we've had dogs, although we skewed towards more of a dog family than a cat family. But there's a unconditional love that comes with a dog. They're not judging you. Although we have Springer Spaniels, so their condition may be, who is the next person who will feed me? I will give my love to that person. So it may not be totally unconditional, but there's this connection and there's this energy. There's no spoken words, but they can feel our vibe. In the dog world, there's a saying that your energy travels down the leash, right? So how how you're feeling, your dog picks up on it, and there can be this great there's great connection. So when there's joy, you can also feel it together. When you're a little bit blue or down in the dumps, your dog can be there as a comfort. And they ask no questions, they're just there. And there's something about that we don't necessarily do enough of as humans, just being with each other in the same space and being quiet and just hearing each other in that way, and sort of energetically about like, I can feel safe in this environment. Being I don't have to fill it with words. I don't have to fill it with some action or another movie. I can just be. And I think our animals allow us to just be in those moments, to slow things down and feel that energetic love that they offer us. And they're also a reminder, I think, of how short life can be. And because their lives don't typically last as long as a human's life. But as long as they're here, they do provide, again, such great love, but also great valuable lessons. They teach us about ourselves. And what a gift they give without, again, saying a word. And when they pass, we realize, oh wow, like life, life's too short. And hopefully it's a wake-up call to get busy living. Because one of the things that I was told from one of the nurses that was actually in my trauma room when they brought me in, she came to visit me when I came out of the ICU, and I have no memory of this interaction at all. I only later learned about it when she sent me a random DM on Instagram when she heard I was riding my bike across the country back in 2022. And so she relayed the conversation that we had. And once she did, that it brought it all back. It was like deep in my memory bank. And she said, listen, Michael, life, there's no one's promised tomorrow. Like guarantee is not, tomorrow's not a guarantee. So make sure that you tell the people in your life you love them, because you're not promised tomorrow. And I think our animals teach us that, like, yeah, you're not promised tomorrow. And hopefully that wakes us up to leaning into life more.
Mm. And so beautiful, so profound. Like so much is, I'm tearing up a bit too, thinking about all this. But I mean, especially the way you describe, dogs, and I know a lot of people feel this way about cats too, but it's like they're like little Zen masters, just angels that come into our life, so much to teach us about, not only unconditional love, presence, like they are just
Yeah.
nothing but present for you, so enthusiastic about every morsel of life, every zest of life, and it is such a bond too, because there's no baggage included. There's no complexity, there's no expectation. And so it's like, I think animals not only teach us to love harder because it's so safe, because it's so like
Mhm.
received. And I know that, people can even be a little closed off in long-term relationships, if they want to
Sure.
be. And animals really teach us to truly pour our hearts out into them. And also the same vice versa, as they show us how lovable we really are, even in all of our imperfections and stuff like that. And I know so many times like Huxley would come to me. He was the kind of dog that followed you everywhere. And so many times when I'm like working or frustrated with something, he would just like get me to stop and pay attention to him. And it was like he was giving me that gift of getting me out of the swarmy, crazy head stuff and like really back into the meaning of life. And even on our walks, like I read once that dogs actually like to be on a leash because it's their connection with you. It's not like a domination or anything kind of like that. It's like they want to be connected with you. And that the worst thing that you could do is like go, work all day and then take them on a walk and be on your phone the whole time. It's like they
Yes.
want your presence. They feel that, they know that. And I know so many times I even remember the last walk I took on with Huxley with is like I was on my phone listening to something and I was like, you know what, I need to put this away. And then I just like focused on him and I was just telling him, I love you, I love you, and it's like there's obviously moments I wish I did that more, but I'm so grateful for the lessons that I was able to receive from that. And they must be such advanced beings in the grand scheme of the universe.
I'm right there with you. Like our Hopi girl, when we would go walk, or we have a big high school, big like playing fields and stuff like that, where we'd go walk her along with our other dog Story. And so sometimes there'd be deer out there, and so she would, even as an old girl, like she was like, getting a little bit slower, she would run after the deer, like shoo them away, or run after the geese that were there and shoo them off her lawn. And she would turn around and run back to us with this great big smile, like, look at what I did. And just to your point, like, dogs bring this joy, this playfulness to each, almost every day, right? And, to approach this life with the attitude that it's a gift, that we can choose joy. They also teach us it's important to rest every now and again. And yeah, it's just the love that's there. I so cherish it. And each dog that we've had, and we've had many, have all taught every family member different lessons, lessons that we most needed to hear. And I will be forever grateful for like each of them and how they've touched our lives. And, as our current girl Story is touching our lives right now, it's just, I'm going to cherish every moment I have with her, because I know it's short. And I know like when it's her time to pass, I will be heartbroken once again. But I can hold that heartbreak along with the joy that she's provided, all at the same time.
Mm. And that's what our life is, right? It
Yeah,
truly
that's
is. Like
life.
we have to be brave enough to face the heartbreaks and not like just shut ourselves down and get into the checked out, distracted mode. It's like this is a world of feeling. We're here for it, and there's so
Yes.
much beauty that comes from that.
It's messy. It's like it's finger painting. It's playing in the dirt. It's like all like that's life. It's all of it. And I think when we allow ourselves to open up to all of it and not deny reality or numb it away or put up our body armor, and we only want the good stuff. Like if we if we go only after the good stuff, it's addicting. And like there, the stuff that hurts a bit is a counterbalance. And when we open up to all of it, I think life gets much more meaningful. uh, Again, it's a hard thing because we have a 5 by 8 inch thing in our hands or thereabouts in size that can easily pull us away from the moments of boredom or moments where we hurt and we can be entertained. And to go out and say, don't do that, like, don't do that, lean into the hard stuff, is like, are you kidding me? Like, why would any reasonable person do that? But my hope is that more people in time, we'll we'll see that chasing after all the treats on the phone doesn't create the meaningfulness of the life that they want to create. So that's my hope, and I'm forever hopeful. That's why we named our girl Hope. So
I love that analogy. I hope that sticks with the listeners on the show today. I got all my feelings right now, and I hope the listeners do too. If anyone wants to connect with you, learn more about you, your work, and what this is all about, where can they find you?
so they can find me on my website, which is really easy. It's michaelobrienschiff.com. I also have a great app called Pause, Breathe, Reflect. It's based on microdose meditations, but it actually has a feature in it, and it's completely free on the App Store. No subscription needed. But there's a feature on the app that allows you to block distracting apps and websites. So you can scroll less and find more time for things that bring you more joy. So people can check that out. Those are two great locations for us to get connected.
Amazing. Well, we'll be sure to include that in the show notes. And just thank you so much for your profound wisdom today. I know this is a really healing conversation for me too.
Yeah, but likewise, we're both going through something, and it's good to know that you're not alone, right? And so thanks for having me on. I so appreciate you.